I'm really excited because I'm going to read one of my favorite poems and talk about my only short story. The poem inspired the short story, The Human Harvest, and before I dive into the poem, I just kind of want to give a background on the short story. So, the short story has the character Margot Till. We meet her at 7 and then she grows up probably 18 and then the story ends. And she's actually the same character that's in my novel Lilac Lovers. They're very different, mostly because the novel and then the short story, you have to be really quick with what happens in the short story. So there's many different actions that happen, but the emotions are still there. During her childhood, she has a very bad childhood. Her mother is very what's that word? Submissive. Her father's abusive, and her sister is blind. There's a lot of turmoil between it, and she's trying to make sense why her family is so angry and why some of her family believes in God and why some of them don't. So she gets this weird idea that before we were God's humans, we were something else. So as she learns more about her family and grows up, she starts labeling her family as objects or other creatures before they were actually her mother, her sister, or her father. So she looks at her mother as this dandelion that God blew, and it carried the seeds all the way to Alabama because her soul wanted a good mother. And that's the idea that her mother is being pushed anywhere she wants and she's going to be planted anywhere, kind of saying that she is submissive. She looks at her father as an empty wardrobe, that here he is this strong, built man, but he's empty. So what's the point of being a father and a husband if you have no heart and you're an empty soul and you can't love? Her sister she compares to a candle that was almost burnt, so God blew it out. So then the wax fell on her sister's soul, and that's why her sister's blind. And of course, a metaphor of blowing out the light, that it gets dark and leads to blindness. Now, Margot, she looks at herself as a worm that was cut in half by God's shovel. And she's thinking that when you cut a worm in half, the other half grows. That even though she is her own person, spiritually, she's missing a part of her heart, part of her soul. So you're thinking, okay, she's going to fall in love. And it is a love story. She does fall in love. But then you look at it, well, is she really looking for the connection with God, the connection with her sister, the connection with her mother or father? And it's all these questions of what we look for when we try to connect the pain, suffering, and things we don't really understand with God. And so this is just her trying to make sense of mostly what we go through. How is God real if he does this? And why is my mother not protecting me, but yet she prays for God to save me? And that's a lot of the questions she goes through and she asks. So in the poem, you can see a lot of this emotion and this weird thought around it. So I'm going to stop ranting and actually read it. Okay, so it's called The Human Constellation. I lived before God laced his hand through my ribs and pulled me into existence. My hair has not always been dark brown, nor has my skin always held an olive tone. I was merely dirt before, waiting for God to plant a soul into me for the upcoming harvest. My nose holds 12 freckles, 12 specks of dirt God fell to blow off as he cleaned my ripened flesh. The right arm of my lover showcases 6 specks at least, for I have not counted the rest. His specks are not my specks. A constellation of old stars fell into him one after another before God harvested him. The constellation of soft stars touch my fingers when I trace his arm. Am I the wish among his shooting stars? So you can see her trying to make sense of, what we were before God and how that affects us as humans. That if we were treated badly by God in our non-human life, and that might be a reason why we're so against him. If he treated us kindly, maybe that's why we're able to believe in him more. It's just a really weird idea that I've always liked to play with. And surprisingly, she's super religious, even though she has all these weird questions, and she actually starts believing God in the shape of the man in the moon. You can't see God, but you can see the moon. So whenever she's struggling with religion, you can always see her looking at the moon, and it's actually a big theme One of her fears is that the man in the moon will never see her in love. That here she is seeing all of his different phases, yet he's only seen her sad. And that comes into the novel. Not going to talk about it, but I don't really talk about Lilac Lovers that much, but I do plan on writing it after Seven Sonnets, so I just wanted to share some of the characters, some of the inspiration, the emotions, ideas, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.